30 seconds to ask the question and 2 minutes for each of the candidates to answer. Okay, who's got another question? I know former Mayor Greenwald down there probably does, but I'll look in this direction to make sure that I don't call on him. We'll save your spot till about 9 p.m. when we're all out the parking lot. Okay.
I live over on Morrison Street, and I moved in there about 4 years ago, and about 6 months after I got there, well, part of the streets, yes, because they put a fire thing in there, and it ruined my driveway, and I'm upset about that. But there's a house down there that's been moved out of about 6 months, and it's just going to waste. And you're concerned about housing. What can we do about these empty houses that look like junk now? It was a perfectly beautiful house before. What can we do about those empty houses?
Barry, tell them.
Start with Doug online. Doug, can you start this answer?
As far as on your empty houses,
Yes.
yeah, your first thing you're gonna have to do at some point, you're gonna have to come out and City Council is gonna have to pass some rules, some laws to be able to deal with that. You can't just go in and say, I'm gonna condemn your house until you put something in writing for what they've done wrong. If that ends up having to go to a public election, that's fine, but you're gonna have to put procedures in place that houses have to be at a certain level, that you can't have vacant houses, and if they are, they've gotta be kept to a certain cleanliness or a certain repair. But you can't go in and just tell somebody, well, your house is vacant, and we decided we don't like the looks of it, you're gonna have to tear it down. But you can go in and have city codes to say, here's what minimum appearances are, here's what minimum maintenance has to be, and that's going to be some of the growth pains that Morrison's going to go through, because you're going to have those codes in place to hold people accountable, keep their properties into a level of repair, if that's what you want to say, that is acceptable for growth. Those things are things you look at long term that are going to have to be put in place. Once you do those, then you just go out and hold people accountable and say, this is what our code is. If it had to be voted on in a general election that everybody accepts the new codes, so be it. But that has to be put in place and then just enforce your codes.
Okay, and just so we're clear, that particular house that you were referencing, that particular house has been in foreclosure, so there are several others in town that still fit the same idea. I just wanted to clarify that one particular house is in foreclosure, so. Okay, next, Brett.
I'm gonna be blatantly honest, I don't really know what to do. But I do know that the town should, as Doug mentioned, should have ordinances set in place that we can enforce. So one of the things that our small town is going to have to do as part of our growing pains is figure out what those ordinances need to be, get them approved, and then figure out who's going to enforce them. So part of what was mentioned earlier is as we grow, we're going to need full-time people. And one of those full-time people is going to be some kind of enforcement officer. Now, people are not going to like that because that enforcement officer is going to be talking about more than just empty abandoned houses. And they're going to be talking about things that are left abandoned in yards and grass that goes unmowed for months. I mean, yes, it's going to become more of a nuisance manager as well. So, but yes, I think that that's something that will be coming sooner than later, I think, because I think it's already been something that's begun to be talked about in the past 2 to 3 months. And I do think that our town ordinances are going to become something that will become updated very quickly.
Yeah, as far as the house on Morrison Street, it is an eyesore. I've laid eyes on it several times. And frankly, it is a problem, but like Barry said, I've taken on as well. It's in foreclosure, and it's not much as far as getting it out of foreclosure that we can do. But we can, and I think we do, if I'm not mistaken, have a nuisance clause that the city already has in place. And enforcing that, holding people accountable, would clean up a portion of it. Now, as we grow, obviously there's going to be instances that need to be stricken, like cars, animals. It's hard to walk throughout the community. Some people carry a baseball bat, which is embarrassing to me because they have to carry a baseball bat to walk around the town. It's not just abandoned houses; it's been neglected throughout the years. It's an overall problem, and that's where accountability is going to pay. And I think that you guys are searching for tonight is accountability within your leaders and holding people accountable and relying on each other to hold people accountable. I think you're going to see tremendous growth and opportunity in the community over a short amount of time and not change a thing. But I do side with you. I would love to get those things cleaned up. I would like to make it easier for people to demo houses. I would love to make it easier for people to clean up abandoned houses. I'd like to build some type of opportunity that the community and the citizens can work with the leaders of this community to have incentives to tear down and rebuild. It's just frankly, that's what we're going to have to experience over growth, but that's my answer.
So, Brett and Sean are both correct in that we have a nuisance ordinance. We passed somewhere around 12 or 13, if I'm not mistaken, right? That does apply to the removal of debris, and Barry is knowledgeable of that particular residence because we have encountered that very issue. They're also correct in that there's a measure of enforcement that goes with it. We've written several letters where we fall down in the ability to enforce it because we don't have a mechanism, we don't have a law enforcement officer in the municipal system. One of the things that we've really wrestled with for a long time is how we can put a law enforcement officer, maybe not necessarily a law enforcement officer, but somebody as a security presence in the community that does code enforcement, things of that nature, that could, right now the only way we can enforce that is to add it to the property taxes. And obviously if it's in foreclosure, there's not much good that's going to do. And before I forget, I'm so sorry. If we cut your water line, I'm sorry. Well, okay, well, I'm very sorry. I apologize for that. There are ways for us to enforce those codes, and the codes are there. It's just a matter of being able to get the people in place. One of the things that we're working on doing by expanding the responsibilities of the council from a 3-member council to a 5-member council, and expanding some of the responsibilities by changing the titles of some of the individuals, Brady being a city manager rather than a clerk treasurer. We'll be able to oversee some of that type of activity and make sure that those codes are enforced.
As far as I know, the hardest part of correcting all of these issues is the enforcement. We don't have the power to enforce anything. We don't have a judge, we don't have any police, we don't have a jail, we don't have a courthouse, we're just a small little town. And some of the issues that we have can be corrected, but it takes an effort for the whole bunch of people to take care of it, not just 1 or 2 people. You can't just hire someone to say, okay, go out and start policing all these problems that we have. He comes in and writes a report, then what do? hire a hitman, or, I mean, there's nothing they can do about it when you don't have any teeth in your enforcement.
Everybody, please ignore what he just said.
We're live streaming.
No, we're not.
I'm joking, we're not.
Right.
Yes, I was gonna ask, the last thing we built for kids to play or any kind of facility for kids has been the park out here on the highway. And that was 2007, 2008-ish. What are your guys' plans of doing something for the kids? The baseball fields are in the worst shape they've been in. The high schools put money in their fields, but the little leagues are still ran down.
I don't want to do anything for the kids. No. So this was actually, again, something that was discussed very recently with the current council, is that there is, the city's aware that there are some irrigation lines and things in the fields that run through there that need repair. And that during that process of repairing those would be a great time to go ahead and do some work with those fields. Turning the T-ball field, there's some ideas that apparently have already been brought before the city before. And so that would be a good time to kind of do some of that stuff. However, I do think that there is some money that needs to be raised in order to bring some updates to that. For instance, the softball field over there for the Little League, it needs to be completely dug out and redone because it's full of rock that's 6 inches deep because I tried to fill it in last year. So I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I think there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done helping the community as well. And so I don't disagree with you at all, and I think it's something that needs to be addressed pretty quickly.
Yeah, I share the same concern with the activities for the youth. Obviously, being firsthand involved in the pool and the direction that it was going and has been going is embarrassing to me, and I would love to see an opportunity for the community members to enjoy a pool that has a little bit more attention than it has been given in previous years. But as far as building infrastructure for the kids, I'm 100% for it. Now, do I have a magic wand saying that I'm going to put the biggest park up that you've ever seen? I do not. But I support 100% bond issues and other ways to raise money to build a safe place for our kids to go, a clean place for our kids to go, somewhere that you can take pride in. I think that's the direction that the community is heading, and I support that 100%.
Well, Clint, I think you probably know those ball fields better than anybody. Mostly because your dad did a lot of work on them, and your granddad dedicated his life to them. And I appreciate all the work that they did. One of the things I think we've done here in the recent past is paid huge dividends. Most people don't know those ball fields are all owned by the municipality. The school district owns a portion. There's a kind of like an imaginary Mason-Dixon line that runs through the middle of the parking lot right out here in front of the event center between the ball fields, and the school property separates from the city property. So all the ball fields are owned by the town of Morrison. About 4 or 5 years ago, really wasn't that far back, because Brent was the one that did it. Brent Haken approached us about the school contracting with the municipality to obtain some measure of operation for the facilities that the school utilizes. They have more resources at their disposal. They have a beneficial use for the softball and the baseball field. So a lot of what you're seeing is an agreement as a result of an agreement that the town struck with the school to operate the baseball and the softball field. A lot of those improvements are going through NPWA tax deductible donations that are then turned into the school's benefit by improving those facilities. They're still owned by the municipality, but they're correct. Those T-ball fields are still owned by the town and operated by the town. We just recently hired a full-time Little League coordinator. We've never done that before. We're really trying to take an aggressive approach at bringing the operations of our Little League into the fold of the town so we can promote it better.
Just recently, is that turned on?
Hold it up.
Just recently, we have been talking in the city council about those ball fields, and the discussion was brought up about turning them where all of the home plates are all congested together, so that all the seating can be relatively close to the concession stand. We haven't gone any further than just discussing it. We don't have any price that it would take or how much material it would take, but we have been talking about it, and we just haven't finalized anything yet.
Okay. Doug, your turn. You go ahead, respond to that question.
Yeah,
Okay, go
I
ahead.
think you've got some needs there. Your ultimate decision on what you do for it is, one, if it's in your budget, great, do it. More than likely, it's probably not. So if you're gonna make vast improvements on it, you're gonna have to do some kind of a bond issue on it. In the future, your hope, and that's what, I hope everybody's here to kind of do. In the future, you need to see how you can increase that revenue. The biggest way to get revenue is to have more people in. As you get more people, the need for better facilities and bigger facilities are always going to be there. I think it needs to be a priority for anything that the whole community can use. The things that are going to get people to move into Morrison, we already know are going to be the schools, the families, the kids, the spaces like the fields, the parks. That's going to be what attracts people in. If you can afford to put the money into it, you've got to keep those in good operating conditions, because it's cheaper to maintain them than to build new. But if it's more than the budget that's available to you, then you have to go in and do some kind of a bond issue. I think ultimately those kind of things